Welcome to a new episode of the Women's Table, where today we'll be talking to an old friend, Miriam Lancewood. Last time, Miriam told us about her life in the wilderness in New Zealand, and we talked about her book, Woman in the Wilderness. Today, we'll delve into her new adventures and her second book, Wild at Heart. We'll also discuss her remarkable 5,000-kilometer journey through the Himalayas. Miriam will share how her journey from New Zealand to Europe led her to unexpected adventures and life lessons. So brace yourself for another inspiring episode full of adventures and insights. My name is Tina de Keyzer, and this is the Women's Table. Today, having a seat at the table is an old friend, Miriam Lancewood. Miriam and I talked last summer about her first book, Woman in the Wilderness, and we had such a great conversation that we decided to have another chat about her second book, Wild at Heart. And we would also talk about your 5,000 kilometers hike through the Himalayas. Miriam, welcome back. Great to see you again. Thank you for being here with me today again.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure last time, and no doubt it will be good again.
The last time we talked, you were going on a hike to the Himalayas, and afterwards you went to Brazil. Now you're back in Bulgaria, your home. But first, we are going to talk about your book, your second book, Wild at Heart. Mm-hmm. So one thing, you are in New Zealand, and at one particular moment, you decide you want to go to Europe. So why did you decide to go back to Europe? Why did you decide to break up with New Zealand?
Well, actually, because we just finished the Te Araroa Trail, we really liked this long walking. So we thought, right, where else can we go? Because New Zealand is only another trail there. There's actually trails all over the world. And then we thought, well, why not go to Europe? Because there are many trails in Europe. They called the E numbers, like European 1, 2, 3, etc. I think there are more than 10 or maybe 15 trails. So we decided to walk the E4 walkway, and that started in France. And so we did. We started walking in France and want to walk all the way to Istanbul. And we did get there, but we didn't walk the whole way. But it was amazing. So it picks up on existing pathways, like the Grand Randonnée 91, and then the Jura Crest Trail, and then the Maximilian Weg. And that's how they are cleverly linked.
Yeah, okay. You and Peter had many adventures while you were in Europe. So let's talk about all the adventures you and Peter experienced. You went to France because of your parents? You wanted to visit your parents?
Yes, indeed. Yep, they've got beautiful property in the Ardèche, and so we stayed there waiting for the good spring warm weather.
But in France, nothing actually exciting happened, right? It was quite quiet, right?
Pretty quiet. Yep, very beautiful walkway in the Vercors and the Chartreuse. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Never knew.
Yeah. So how long were you in France?
I think a month with my parents and a month walking until we entered Switzerland.
Yeah. So you went to Switzerland. So, and in Switzerland, one day you went hitchhiking to Germany because you wanted to do some groceries, and you got a ride with Johannes, an elderly man. So tell us about this special ride with Johannes. What happened?
Years in his car. Not one, but like many of them, and pillows and everything. Rather strange setup for a car. And I thought, oh, well, he's friendly enough. And he said he had nothing else to do, and he could bring me all the way. And this happens more often. And I thought, well, that's friendly. The man has nothing to do. So that's fine. So we get out of town, and we enter the highway. And while we racing towards the highway, he asked me where I was from. And I said I was born in Holland, but immigrated to New Zealand. And he continued to talk about Holland, where he went on his holiday to the seaside, years ago with his wife. And his wife was blah, blah, blah. A few minutes later, he says, so where are you from, my dear?
Oh, my.
And I'm like, huh? And I started to understand that this man obviously had some sort of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And then I thought, this is going to be tricky.
Yeah.
And we go to the highway, and we had to, move in with the traffic, right?
Yeah.
And you have to speed up. You go from 50 kilometers to at least 100. Yeah. And in Germany, you have this unlimited speed highway. So they go really very fast. But this man thought, halfway, he thought, oh, I'm going the wrong way. I have to go home. And my home is over there to the left. And he wanted to turn left into the traffic. And so he turned the wheel and I had to move over and take over the steering wheel and, touch the steering wheel for him and say, we have to go to the right. This is a highway. You have to speed up. This is highway. I kept saying this in German.
Yeah.
And the man was completely confused and only drove maybe 40 kilometers an hour, which felt like we were standing still. And I had to sort of coach him along and keep saying, we have to go faster. Wir müssen etwas schneller fahren. Because he just wanted to stop and turn around. It was so dangerous. I've never been more afraid in my life.
Yeah.
And I was so relieved when I got out of the car, nearly cried. The very first turn off, I said, okay, we turn off here now. And we came to a roundabout and I said, I better stop here. I'm going to get out. And he stopped right on the roundabout with all the traffic behind us. And all the people behind us completely upset. But I got out. I kneeled on the grass and I thought, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
I'm glad I survived. That was one of the most dangerous hitchhiking ever.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying. Yeah. So that was in Germany. And then also in Germany, finally you get settled, you set up a tent, and then there is a storm. Right?
Yeah, we had many storms actually. Yeah. Terrifying storms also. Yeah, because we were in Germany on the high mountains, walking the Maximilian Weg, and the warm air came from the lowlands of Germany and pushes upwards, meeting the cold air of the mountains. And every single day you get a thunderstorm. Yeah. So it was very, very common. We got used to it. But we've heard branches crashing, trees falling down. And we were thinking like, well, this could be us, and no one would know.
Yeah.
Back in those days, we didn't have a telephone, no emergency beacon, nothing like that. And it was like, well, if we die now because a tree falls on a tent, it's only a plastic tent, no one would know.
No one would know. Yeah. At one point you say, and I quote, it was frightening and yet exhilarating. The storm, the rumble, the flashes on the horizon.
Sometimes as well. Yeah.
So,
looking up, sitting on a big rock and looking at the lightning flashing in the distance, and then feeling that energy of the lightning and the thunder. There's so much energy in the air. Yeah. So at a safe distance, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, at a safe distance. What I was wondering is because even though you experience this strange elderly man like Johannes with a hitchhiking, you're terrified, and then there's a storm, and in spite of everything you still want to live outside.
Yep, we still want to take the risks because the bad also comes with the good. We meet really strange people, but we also meet very, very good people, and you just never know. And I do not want to stop taking the risk. I want to keep taking the risk. I want to trust humanity, really. I think there are many more good people than bad people. So the odds of a bad experience is very small and the advantage.
Yeah, okay.
Of doubt.
Okay. And then at one point, you and Peter are tired. And then while in Germany, you get an invitation from Simon. And Simon is a friend of Peter, a long-time friend of Peter. And he invites you to stay with him. And you happily accept because you both are very tired.
Yeah.
So, it was also a very remarkable story. So what happens when you get to Simon?
Yeah, we go to his house. And I said, oh, Simon, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
And the whole thing, the conversation fell silent. And he looked at Peter like he didn't tell you. I said, no. And they said, well, I'm a spiritual leader. What?
Okay.
Turns out the guy is sort of a guru who set himself up. And his followers just happened to be all very pretty young Austrian ladies, all blonde. And he himself was Indian. And so he completely set himself up as a guru. And he was all for having multiple girlfriends. And I was like, and do they have multiple boyfriends too? And he said, no, because those boyfriends, they are not so spiritually advanced, they're not enlightened. And then you just get more and more conflict. So no, not at this stage. Oh, yeah. Very clever, you, Simon. So it turns out that we stayed in a sort of a cult. And these girls started talking to us. And one girl said, well, I'd like to have a boyfriend for myself. And I'm like, well, shouldn't you get out? And I could see that it's quite a labyrinth. And it was hard to get out. You just get around. And just the way he talked to these girls, very cleverly done.
Yeah. Because at one point, there's this gathering, there's some sort of gathering, and then one of the girls was, how do you say it? She went out and she met other people, and he was like, he didn't appreciate it, right? That she was talking back to him.
Yeah, indeed. There was this meeting, the satsang meeting, and like the lesson of sorts, and then there was quite an argument going on between the girl and him.
Yeah.
And I thought, what should I be doing? Should I stand up and say, well, you're just bullying her right now?
Yeah.
And we talked about it a lot afterwards. What do you do in those situations? And Peter said, well, she's an adult.
Yeah.
She can go out any time. So we should not interfere. But yeah, we thought about it a lot. Yeah. What do you do in those situations?
Yeah. So when you were there, did you feel trapped? Did you feel like you also couldn't get out? Did you feel that? Yeah. No?
Me?
You didn't feel like he wanted the both of you to stay with him and also become like followers or something like that?
Yeah, he wanted us to stay. Yeah, that's right. Especially me, of course. Peter would be a bit of a nuisance. But no, I didn't feel trapped because I knew I could walk away.
Yeah.
But had I been in a different situation, like those girls, a lot of them had little children, divorced from their partner, not knowing where to go, and they must have felt trapped. And I could see how easy it was to be quite rational on one hand, and yet being trapped in something that initially looked quite attractive.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
Yeah. And then you're in Germany. Can you also tell us about, because we're talking about specific events that are happening. Can you also tell us about the trails you walked, the things you experience, the specific nature parts, the particular...
So our walk through Europe was really fascinating. And born in Holland, I had no idea how beautiful the south of Germany is. And also part of France. But France, I knew a little bit. We used to go there on holidays, me and my parents. But the south of Germany on the border with Austria is absolutely fascinating. As beautiful as New Zealand. Not as high mountains, but certainly as beautiful. And we saw chamois, wild chamois. And they were not hunted because there are not so many hunters in Germany. And so they're quite tame. Not tame, but they don't run away so quickly as in New Zealand. A chamois is actually, you could think a mountain goat, but it's actually not a goat. It's a family of an antelope. But yeah, it does look like a goat. A whole, group of them. Yeah, so beautiful. You can drink the water, beautiful rocks and cliffs and rivers to cross. Absolutely beautiful. You can camp anywhere.
In Germany.
But this was the funny thing. In Germany, they always say, when I go hitchhiking, always the Germans say, when they hear my story, one thing. The one sentence is, are you allowed? Every single German asked, is it allowed to? They mean to camp, to wild camp, to light a fire. But the thing is that no one goes off the trail. So the moment you walk 100 meters off the trail, you will not see any other German. So no one will see you. And they might smell the smoke, but they will not come to investigate it. Because no one goes off the trail, because you might not be allowed. So, we had a great time in Germany, never had any problem. We might not have been allowed, who knows? But we got away with it easy, very easy. Yeah. And in France, you are allowed to bivouac for one night, so no problem.
Okay. So from Germany, you go to Bulgaria, and there you meet Susan, who contacted you by email. What surprises me is that you get a lot of emails from a lot of people who invite you to do all sort of hikes, invite you to stay with them.
Yeah.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah, that's right. So since the first book, people looked me up on my website, and indeed, they write a lot of invitations. Maybe also because they know that we are quite free. And if we get an invitation, we jump at the opportunity. Yeah, we go through open doors.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So we walked till the end of the Maximilianweg in Austria, and it was already like winter. It was barely September, and the weather was horrible.
Mhm.
And we thought, how are we going to do the rest of our journey to Istanbul? Because that was the plan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we got this email, take the bus, because we are not a slave to our own plan. We don't have to walk to Istanbul. We can just take the bus for most of the way. So we did
Sure.
that. After 1,000 kilometers in Western Europe, we just took a Flixbus or something and ended up in Sofia
Mhm.
and went to this village where this Dutch woman was living, Suzanne,
Mhm.
and she introduced us to Bulgaria. In the beginning, we didn't even know where Bulgaria was, but she told us, well, it's wonderful here, it's very quiet. Most people have left. Young people leave for Western Europe for a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Villages are getting more empty, but the fruit trees still remain, the nut trees, all the mushrooms. You can just gather as much as you want, and especially this time of the year, which was
Yeah.
autumn.
Yeah.
And so that sounded like paradise to us. So yeah, we came over there. In the beginning, we were a little bit not impressed with Bulgaria, but the longer we stayed there, the better the country became, and especially the empty villages and the prices of the real estate.
Yeah. Because you also mentioned in your book that you turned down the house that was offered to you for 5,000 euros.
Yes, we bought the house.
Oh, you bought the house.
We bought, that's where I am right now. We walked in. So we stayed in one place for a little bit, and this in which I am sitting right now. And it was 5,000 leva. That was 2,500 euro, and was for sale, which is very, very unusual because most people do not have the documents to sell it, or the house is so dilapidated that you need to spend so much on renovation.
Yeah.
And most of the houses are in the village, and this particular cottage is not. It's 2 kilometers out of a village.
Yeah.
And so absolutely ideal. It's sitting in the mountains, in the forest, beautiful view a little further away. So we bought it, and then we lived in it for a little bit, and then we left. Yeah.
Yeah. Then in Sofia, you meet your friend Marilyn.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
A French friend, and together we walked through Bulgaria. Yeah, and that's how we came eventually to this particular cottage. And it was wonderful to just walk through, because at one stage we saw a policeman. He said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Oh, walking." And where he said, "Well, you're sleeping." Well, just in a tent. And he said, "Okay, well, first of all, you can sleep anywhere you like, and you can light a fire anywhere you like."
Mm-hmm.
And that sounded just like heaven to us.
Yeah, I get it.
Because, after Germany, with Are You Allowed?
Yeah.
We were just so happy that this was all very much allowed.
Yeah, but there are also bears in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Because you were walking and then you saw people warned you.
The bears are the worst and the best thing about this country.
Oh, explain.
Yeah, indeed. And also no snakes, no crocodiles. All that is in Australia. New Zealand got nothing, only birds, and then the introduced animals.
Yeah.
The most dangerous thing is maybe the sandfly. That is just a nuisance.
Yeah.
But here in Bulgaria is many, many bears and wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And they are really here. You see footprints all the time. You see their shit. They're there. And I'm not used to that. And in the beginning, I was so terrified to sleep with every little sound. I'm thinking, okay, now is he coming? He's coming.
Yeah. So was that one of the reasons you wanted to buy a house, for safety?
Yeah, after a while, I must say we rented a little cottage to start with, just to have a little bit of peace and quiet, especially at night. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I can imagine. While in Bulgaria, you receive another email from this Turkish woman, Jasmine, and she says she had read your book. And let me see, she just resigned from her job as a city guide because she wanted to live closer to nature. And in Peru, she had done a lot of hiking, and now she asked if you were interested in walking the Lycian way together. This would be a 500-kilometer walk in Fethiye. I'm not sure if I pronounce it right. So you were already planning to go to Turkey. So this was an excellent offer, of course, a very attractive offer. So what happened with Jasmine? Because the trip didn't really go as planned.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we thought like, the woman has done a lot of hiking in Peru and whatnot, and she's experienced, and she said we should hike that Lycian Way in winter because in the mountains, but no other tourists. So that sounded good to us. And yeah, so we met her. She was very nice. We did notice that, in the city, people live at night. They go out at night. They have late dinners. They go out 10 o'clock in the evening to go out for dinner. And we were in bed by 8 o'clock at night. So there's quite an adjustment in us. We arrived in Istanbul and she was super energetic. And we were just completely exhausted because of the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Those first few days. And then we started together on the Lycian Way. And then the roles were reversed because I was happy to sleep at 8 o'clock at night. But of course, she couldn't sleep and she was awake till 12 or so.
Yeah.
And then I got up at 7 to make breakfast and then she still tried to sleep. So yeah, enormous difference between city people and country people in terms of sleep patterns.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was quite an adjustment to start with. Then I think she found it really hard. We had a big storm on day 2 or so and she just said, this is way out of my comfort zone. I will go to a hotel. We're like, hotel?
Yeah.
So she lasted 4 days, unfortunately, and she went home.
Yeah. So you did the Lycian Way just by yourself, just the two of you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. It's not difficult. And it is, in fact, a really beautiful walkway on the coast of Turkey. I can recommend it to everyone. So the Lycian Way is actually a very good and beautiful, beautiful trail to walk. But I would recommend going in winter rather than spring and autumn because otherwise it's too busy and you're competing with a lot of other people.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. And then while in Turkey, you receive another email. An invitation for the Byron Writers Festival because of the success of your book, A Woman in the Wilderness. And then they offer you 2 tickets and you and Peter decide to go to Australia.
Yes, that's right. So, as you can see, this whole book is we don't make any decisions.
No.
We just go where the invitation lies. So we always go through open doors. It's much easier than building doors and opening them. So that was our philosophy. But in this case, we were invited to go to Australia and both of our tickets would be paid for. So that sounds great because it's otherwise very expensive flight ticket. But the moment I accepted it, Peter was saying, no, we shouldn't be going. No, it's a bad timing. No, I don't want to go. And on he went. And I said, shut up, Peter. You already told me 150 times. We accepted this offer. Everything is paid for. Where are you going? Now stop your moaning.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't stop. And he kept on and on and on and on, as though he knew what was coming, because Australia was an absolute disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happened in Australia? Tell us about the disaster.
Well, because Peter got sick with a stomach bug in the desert and got diarrhea because of it. And it's so dangerous in the desert because of the low humidity. So even by breathing, you were getting dehydrated because the humidity in the air is 7%.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, including Peter, got acute kidney failure. That is very common in the outback in the desert. And luckily, we were very close to a hospital. So we went there and immediately was put on the drip. And soon after the kidney started to fail. And the diagnosis was that he would recover within 1 month. But he was 5 weeks in the hospital. And in that time, I was sleeping in the car, in a car park, just in a normal car. This is not a van or anything, I was just on the back seat. I couldn't even stretch my legs.
Yeah.
Because I thought, he might get out in 3 days. I didn't organize anything else. But it went on and on for 5 weeks. And Peter only got worse and worse and worse until that we thought he might not make it.
Yeah.
He might just die in hospital. And at one time, he even felt that death was coming near. And he was telling me the next day that he felt as though death had ended. And he felt as though a feeling of peace came over him. And he thought, this is my time. And he felt very peaceful.
Yeah.
And then a little later, the alarm bells went off because someone else had died in another ward. And since that, I was thinking, wow, how amazing. How could you have like a personification of death coming into the hospital? What is this? Can you feel death coming as though a person is coming in? Yeah, very, very strange. But also amazing how peaceful he felt.
Yeah.
He really felt like, well, this is the time and it's a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't die, obviously. We made it to New Zealand and we stayed with friends, and he went back to the doctor. And the doctor did all these blood tests and said, Peter, I'm sorry, you should have recovered in 1 month, but you have not. And now we diagnose you with chronic kidney failure.
Yeah.
And that means that you will not recover. Chronic is, deadly. You will die of kidney failure unless you do dialysis, which is the cleaning of the blood on a machine, and a kidney transplant. So I thought, oh, all right, we do that, we do anything. But when we looked into the side effects of those two things, it's not so pretty, especially the transplant. Your body wants to get rid of their foreign kidney, so you have to take immune suppressant drugs. And that means you don't have any resistance for, say, skin cancer. And the doctor looked at Peter's skin, and his skin is not so good because he grew up in New Zealand with a lot of, strong sun. And he said, if you do a kidney transplant, you might just die of skin cancer.
Oh, no.
And then Peter said, well, I'd rather die of kidney failure, thanks.
Yeah.
And also dialysis. For dialysis, you need to go to hospital every second day. And you're on a machine for 8 hours. He hates being in town. He hates hospitals. He hates driving to a hospital to do dialysis. He said, I'd rather die than going on dialysis. And he also said, also for your sake, you do not want to live in town. And I must say he had a bit of a point there. But yeah. So we thought, okay, he's going to die. Let's prepare for his death and make sure he's got a very nice last 6 months. So for the first time in 9 years, we rented a house, a very beautiful one on the seaside in the north of the South Island near Nelson. Beautiful place, very expensive. But you're not going to worry about money when you're about to die, right?
No.
So we had this place, and, he could only walk 100 meters each day. He was absolutely exhausted, and he constantly was nauseous, bad taste, metallic taste in his mouth. The quality of his life was dreadful. It was really very, very low. Yeah. And so we appreciated every day together. If he didn't wake up in the morning, I was thinking, like, is he still alive? Yeah. Or has he died last night? Where is he? So I went to have a look. That's how, it was really on the edge. Yeah. And it was an interesting time because it felt as though time slowed down. Yeah. Every moment we enjoyed. We didn't worry about the future. Yeah, but as most of you know, all the listeners, he didn't die. He recovered, not 100%, but enough to go back to Bulgaria.
Yeah, but you also mentioned during the time that you are renting the place that you become very unhappy because you feel like a prisoner because you're living inside some walls.
Yes, indeed. I almost forgotten about that bit. Yes, suddenly we were inside indeed, and outside was nature and inside was cut off from nature. So I felt like we were in a prison, and I felt more and more frustrated. Yeah. And even when, want to demolish some things like a vandal. I didn't do any of this, but it was a new emotion, new emotion of anger and frustration. Never felt that in my life, and certainly not living in the wilderness. Yes, indeed. And suddenly I had to go running because I needed exercise and I needed to go do yoga in order to stay supple. And all of these things like meditation. And I discovered all of these things are a side effect and necessity if you live in a house and cut off from the real world. It was very interesting to experience this.
Because I exercise 5 times a week.
You have to.
I exercise 5 times a week. And also meditation. Last night I went to a meditation event here in the village. I live in a very small town village for an hour and a half. And while I was lying there, I was thinking to myself, this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm paying to relax.
It's ridiculous.
It's what is this? But this is the fast world we live in. Actually, we live in. I'm talking about myself, of course, right now. So it's ridiculous that you have to pay to relax in the world we're living in. It's absurd, actually.
Yeah, but if you don't do that, you might not do it. That's a thing. I understand that well.
Yeah.
It comes with that lifestyle of so many things to do, so busy, often busy with nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, not you.
At one point, I think before Peter gets sick, I'm making a leap back to the past.
Mm-hmm.
He decides that he doesn't want to hike anymore.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
And then you think to yourself, okay, so this is it. No more hiking. And then another moment you think, no, if he cannot hike anymore, that doesn't mean that I don't have to hike anymore. So you decide to go hiking with other women, right?
Yeah.
You set up
expedition.
Some sort of expedition. Yeah. Tell us about the expedition.
So the word expedition already, is so big in my mind ever since I was a child. I always wanted to go on expedition, whatever that was, right? And it sounds just so extreme and so fantastic.
Yeah.
And so indeed, in Turkey, I decided that if Peter didn't want to go hiking anymore, then I would myself would organize a true expedition, an epic female expedition, in which I would, with my team, live off hunting and gathering and fishing alone. So no food at all. Just rods and rifles. And of course, I could only do this in New Zealand, where I had to go back to New Zealand. And I was absolutely set on it, that this was my dream that I wanted to realize. Yeah.
Okay. So what happens? So did you find your co-female expedition partners?
Yes, I had 200 applications, because by that time we had a little bit of publicity already. Yeah. So I made this little video calling for these women who want to come with me, and I had set all these things that you could do, like 50 push-ups or something, and all of these things that the woman was supposed to be doing. But it was really hard to find women who could already hunt, because it's not so common, In Holland, you cannot get a hunting license easy. So it had to be from America or Australia or New Zealand. And in the end, I only found one person, and she was from Holland, Tamara Valkenier, and she could not hunt either, but I figured I could hunt for both of us. And so I met her previously, and she turned out to be a really nice person, and we got on really well. She was very adventurous, no experience in hunting, but I could of course teach her a little bit, and she could go fishing, and she knew a lot about edible plants. So I figured the two of us could be a good team.
Yeah, and you were a good match, right?
Yeah, and in the end, indeed. So when Peter was really sick in New Zealand, diagnosed with chronic kidney failure, I said, okay, Peter, I've been preparing for this expedition for 1 year now, so I absolutely want to go. And he understood how serious I was, and he encouraged me to go, even though he was super sick. And I did set off with her, and we survived for 3 months of hunting and fishing alone. And that was a fantastic experience in the Southern Alps. Yeah. Absolutely amazing thing to do.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So, and then let me see, you meet Tamar, you go on an expedition together. While being on this expedition, how did you stay in contact with Peter?
Oh, Tamar had a Garmin outreach. What was it called again? Like an emergency beacon with which you can send messages. And so he could send a little message of that he was doing well, like a one line message. And luckily nothing serious happened during that time.
Then after your return, you and Peter got some good news because he was recovering.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So that was after we'd thought he was going to die, and that was sort of 6 months after. Yeah. And in the end, he did another blood test. I always say we because I feel so included in it. We did a blood test. Of course, I can't do a blood test. It's so like I drive in there and we go together to the doctor, and I'm like his crutch, So it feels like we went to the doctor and did a blood test, and then it was indeed better. It was such a relief and such a miracle, because only in 3% of the cases people do not die within 5 years, and this is now 5 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
he's still doing well?
Yes. And so the doctors said, Peter, if I were you, I would not go to Bulgaria where there is COVID. New Zealand is COVID free. Stay here. Do not take the risk. Flying 2 times 12 hours to the other side of the world is very unwise. Do not travel, and certainly do not go to a COVID country because you will die of COVID.
Yeah.
And Peter said, right, I'm going. So there again, I was so nervous because he's going to die of COVID next.
Yeah.
If it's not malaria, it's going to be kidney failure or it's going to be COVID,
Yeah. Yeah.
And indeed, Bulgaria, a lot of people are not vaccinated. COVID was everywhere. We thought he was going to die in Bulgaria because of COVID, because everyone told us this would be happening. But again, he went against the odds.
Yeah.
And of course, he didn't die.
No. Thank God he didn't die. Because at one point you're also wondering, right? What happens if Peter dies? So what will I be doing? What will you be doing? Will I keep on living in nature? And what is that something I would like to do? Of course, it was something you would like to do, but could you, how would you handle the solitude, the loneliness? So you did think about that, right?
Yes, I think it's very wise to think about what will happen. We don't know what's going to happen in life, but one thing is for certain, we will die. And the people around you will die, for sure. There's no two ways around it. So I do think if you are prepared for the inevitable, then you can handle it slightly better. At least that's what I'm betting on. And I have to make plans of what I'm going to do when he dies. And that could be, his kidneys have not fully recovered. He could die at any moment, in fact, because of, for example, a heart attack, because his heart is very much burdened by the lack of the kidney function, all of his organs. So it could happen anytime. So I have to be prepared. I always think of Neil Young, I think it was Neil Young. May you have a strong foundation when the wind of changes comes. And I'm just hoping I have a strong foundation. Well, I don't know what I will do exactly, but I think I will be traveling and meeting people. And I am very much drawn towards the Himalayas, where I was last summer for another expedition. And I just feel so at home there.
Okay. So you just mentioned the Himalaya, because the last time we talked, you were going on another expedition. With a friend, the two of you, right?
Yes, that's right. So I published a book called Wilder Journeys. That's a collection of stories. And one of the other authors was Sophie Hilaire, and she climbed Mount Everest in 2019. And she has the Guinness Book of Record for the fastest marathon in full army gear. Well, when I read those two things, I thought that must be a very tough cookie. So we got in touch. She came to visit us in Bulgaria. And the day she arrived was also the day we got a monster dump of snow on us. It was like 1 meter snow. And I was very curious to see how she would fare in that. And she was absolutely unfazed. So I thought she is a very good person to be on an expedition with. And so we kept in touch all the time. And indeed, last summer, we went to India to climb 3 mountain passes, 3 passes over 5,000 meters. And it went really well. We were a very good team, and especially because she was very independent. She's an independent person. She lived by herself for a long time. She traveled on her own. She lived in a van in America for 2 years, and she was very happy on her own. And it was really interesting to have a new friendship with somebody so independent. And I realized that actually for every friendship, you need to be whole in yourself first, like whole. Then you can pair up with someone else. That's actually the best way to relate. Otherwise, you have dependency, which creates fear and resentment and all these other emotions.
So how long did this expedition take? How long were you in the Himalayas?
We took 2 months in September, and in the beginning it was very hot. So a fantastic range of temperatures, landscapes we have seen, and also cultures, because you go from one pass over to the other side and you come into a new culture, like from the Indians to the Tibetan side. And a wholly different culture, religion, and food.
Yeah, you had a great time. You were a good match. You were
fantastic time.
Yeah, I remember what I also wanted to. I want to go back to Australia actually because I forgot to mention when you were. I think it was in Turkey. When you already had the tickets to Australia, you received an email from this Dutch girl, Kate. And she and her boyfriend, Kevin, they lived in Australia and they invited you to stay with them. And you were like, because they felt that you were some sort of like-minded people and they invited you and you were like, well, we already go to Australia, so why not visit them? Yeah. So they picked you up at the airport. Something you met with them somewhere? What happened?
Yeah, that's right. But I'm always afraid that they might hear this story now on this podcast and then
okay, you do not want to talk about it, that's fine.
Should we be talking about it? Goodness, her family might hear it. Well, listeners, if the listeners like to hear this horrible story, then they should absolutely read the book Wild at Heart or Lived in the Wilderness.
Okay. Then let's refer this story to the book. Okay.
Yeah. It's a horror story. It's a true horror story. So horrible that I don't even dare to speak about it in a podcast.
So I talked about this book. I talk about you with my husband William a lot. So you really love living in nature, living in the wild. That's pretty clear now. I get it. And I must say that the first time we talked, I told you that I don't even like camping. So I asked you why? Why did you want to go to live in the wilderness? Why? But I realized that when I finished your book, that the way you live, the way you and Peter live, that is actually, and I didn't get it the last time, but I got it. I get it now. That is ultimate freedom.
Yeah, that's right. You're outside everything. Yeah, no dependence on anything.
No.
And as I said before, dependence creates fear and resentment and all the anger and frustration. Yeah. So this is a way of freedom. That's it. But there are many ways within it. But freedom is the key. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for us, living in civilization, whatever that may be, freedom, like financial freedom, this is what we talked about the other day, my husband and I, like financial freedom is actually needing or wanting more money to be free to do whatever it is that you want to do. So I finally get it that the more one has, the more material things one has, the more imprisoned one is.
Oh, absolutely. That's it. And also, what is the price you pay for your property and all the things you possess? What is the actual price you pay? The actual price is your time. So you have to go to work. You have to worry about getting more money for something that you love. But what is the real price you pay? I'd like to have a big house and a big car and probably a private jet, but I don't want to pay the price.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It is true.
Yeah, because, so if you realize that, you see, what do you actually value?
Yeah. Because I'm an entrepreneur and I am like, well, I'm an online entrepreneur. I can work whenever I want, wherever I want. That's what I will say. But actually, it's kind of BS, because I work all the time, because I'm an entrepreneur. I have to work all the time.
You don't have any more say.
So what kind of freedom do I have as an entrepreneur? It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least you don't have a boss. That's a very good start.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because it doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, doesn't mean that I want to move to Bulgaria to live in the wilderness. But I get it. I do. I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the main thing is to cut spending, because for every cent you spend, you have to work, which is time, and that's the time of your being. Yeah. So the main thing is to spend less. But a lot of people are caught in status. Like if I don't go and, for instance, go to their dinner and wear the right clothing and bring a bottle of wine, then I'm losing status.
Yeah.
So status is enormously important for most people. So you have to overcome that first. And also, to say I have a very shitty little house, turn it around and be proud about it. Pride is the best weapon for any attack. If you're proud of the simple life you're leading, like I am now, I can say we have a little house now, but it's really very basic. We don't have electricity, no bathroom, no kitchen, anything like that. But I'm very proud about it. And I don't have a job, and I'm proud about that too. I've got little money. I'm even more proud. I've got little possessions. Also pride. And so you turn it around. But you might not fit in your group of friends any longer. That's the only problem.
Yeah, I get it. Because actually, what I want to add is financial freedom does not exist.
Well, maybe if the moment you decide that if the money you have is enough, isn't that the financial freedom?
Yeah, maybe then it is.
Well, they teach you that it's never enough. You can always have more money, right?
Yeah.
It's never enough.
Sorry. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Miriam, for another inspiring and exciting conversation. It was great having you back. So what's next for you and Peter?
Well, we just arrived back from Brazil.
Yeah.
We did 5 months living on a beach in the warmth, in the tropics. And just last week we returned to our cottage. It was quite a shock. Be back in the snow, although today it's very springy. But so we still settling down here and getting to know our place. To the Himalayas, this time to the Pamir Mountains, the beginning of the Himalayas in Tajikistan.
Yeah.
And I'm going with 2 friends, and I'm back into training, which I love.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at gear. And just last week, I got a new sponsor called bushcraftshop.nl in Holland.
Okay.
And I love them because they have the best gear, very decent gear. Bushcraft, that's not like the lightest, flimsiest stuff. That's a little bit more decent, durable gear.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud that they are happy to sponsor me with materials like a burner, like a fuel burner in Tajikistan, because it's unlikely we find wood there to cook on a fire. And those sort of things. I don't have a burner, a stove. Good rain gear. When I go into the Rila next week, I am going mountain climbing here, and it might be very wet. And a new sleep bag, a new tent, and all of these things they're giving. So I'm super happy with bushcraftshop.nl.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, good for you to have a sponsor. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm super stoked.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Miriam, for this conversation. It was great.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Miriam, thank you so much for sharing your captivating stories and exciting adventures. I do hope our listeners will feel inspired by your adventures and the valuable life lessons you've gathered along the way. Thank you for being with us and giving us a glimpse into your life full of challenges and discoveries. To our listeners, please continue to chase your dreams and explore the world, just like Miriam. Thank you all for listening. My name is Tina de Keyzer, and this is the Women's Table.